Welcome to Echoes of Madness. This story in particular is a true story. It happened to a friend of mine while out on a late-night fire rescue call. Sit back and enjoy. And as always, thank you for listening. Consider subscribing. Now on with the show. I've been a firefighter for a little over 4 years. I've seen more than my fair share of tragedy, destruction, and death. It's enough to make most people walk away from the job, but I guess I've always had this stubborn need to help. So, no matter how many times I ran into burning buildings or saw things that would haunt me for life, I stayed. But there's one night I can't shake. One call that still lingers in the back of my mind like a smoldering ember that refuses to die. We got dispatched to a house fire, small in scale but serious enough. The cause was a kitchen mishap, nothing unusual, but the real emergency was the homeowner, an elderly woman who had suffered a heart attack in the chaos. By the time we arrived, the flames were mostly under control, and we focused on getting everyone out safely. It was just her and her husband. Both were understandably shaken, but she was the one in real distress. As the paramedics loaded her into the ambulance, my team did a final sweep of the house. Once the scene was deemed secure, the others filed out, leaving me to finish packing up our gear and do one last walkthrough. That's when I saw her. A woman sat on the couch in the dimly lit living room, hands neatly folded in her lap. Her presence didn't startle me at first. I figured she was a relative or neighbor who had somehow slipped past us. The glow of the streetlights outside barely reached her, but I could make out her silhouette, the slight tilt of her head as she watched me in silence. "Ma'am, you should be outside with the others," I said, slinging the last of our equipment over my shoulder. She didn't answer, just nodded. But she didn't move, didn't blink. Something about the way she sat there made my stomach twist. Maybe it was how still she was, or the way the shadows clung to her, like the dim light refused to fully touch her. "It's safe now," I added, trying to shake the unease creeping up my spine. "You can go outside." Again, nothing. Just that slow, almost robotic nod. I shifted uncomfortably, now hyper-aware of the quiet pressing down on the house. The air felt heavier, the walls closer. It was a sensation I had only felt a handful of times on the job, an instinctual warning, a feeling that something was off. But logic overrode the chill in my bones. Maybe she was just in shock, disoriented from the smoke. I decided not to press her. "All right then, have a nice night." I stepped out onto the front lawn, shaking off the weird encounter. The husband was standing with one of my crew members, his face pale and drawn from the night's events. "The house is clear," I told him, though the woman inside never evacuated, so she might have a bit of a cough from the smoke. The man's expression shifted instantly, from exhausted grief to stark confusion. "What woman?" he asked. I gestured back toward the house, the one sitting on the couch in the living room, his face drained of what little color remained. "No one else was in that house," he said, voice tight. "It's just my wife and me." A cold weight dropped in my stomach. I turned back to the house, every instinct screaming at me not to go back in. But I already knew what I'd find, or rather, what I wouldn't. The living room was empty. The couch where she sat was untouched, the thin layer of dust on the coffee table undisturbed. There was no sign that anyone had been there at all. I backed out slowly, scanning the corners of the room as if she might reappear. The silence was suffocating now, and every shadow seemed to stretch unnaturally. The dim lighting cast strange, shifting shapes, making the room feel like it was breathing. I walked out without a word, climbed into the truck, strapped in. The ride back to the station was unusually quiet. My team must have sensed something was off, because no one cracked the usual jokes. I kept my eyes on the road, but my mind was still in that house. replaying every second over and over. That nod, that impossibly still figure, the way the darkness seemed to cling to her. I didn't say anything to my team on the ride back. What could I say? That I had a full conversation with someone who wasn't there? That I saw something I wasn't supposed to see? I still think about that woman, about the way she sat there watching me, and I still wonder if she's sitting there now.